Today I'm going to start coding out my page for Juice Pop, which is going to be a website based on, actually not based on, it's going to be a website for a company that makes juice blends. They have both a website and an app, and so far we've been working on the creative brief for it, and we're selecting colors and really starting to get going on this. So today I'm going to code out the page. I'm basing the structure of the page on this wireframe. So it'll have approximately a nav bar on top with some links. I'm not sure about the colors yet. The corporate logo is going to go over here where it says logo. There's going to be a little app teaser here that says something like download the app when, on the finished page when we finally get the stuff from the client. And there's going to be a slideshow over here with little directional clicky arrows or not, depending on what the budget is for that. And below that there'll be a container section with a bunch of little image thumbnails that the user can click. Each image thumbnail will have a little name in it for whatever the product is, or juice, fruit, vegetable, whatever it is. And the user will be able to click on each of those. And below that, at the very bottom of the page, not 100% sure about the size yet, but there'll be a copyright notification in the footer. I still haven't heard back from them whether or not the footer is going to be permanent floating or whether it'll be scrollable. I made it look like it's permanent floating. That may change. Nothing is set in stone. So going back to Dreamweaver, from my start screen, I'm going to click Create New, and I'm just going to choose a basic HTML page. So I'm going to make sure HTML is selected here. Once I have that, I'm going to click Create, and I'm going to start coding out my page. I was trying to figure out what would be the best way to do this. Sometimes I put in the CSS first. We're going to use inline CSS, no external CSS page, inline CSS, just because it's easier that way, and we really aren't going to have that much in the way of styles that would really warrant having a separate page. The first thing I'm going to do is where it has the title tags, I'm going to change out the title tags and call it Juice Pop instead. So now that way every page that I build from this, between the title tags, up at the little title bar, up at the top of the user's browser, they'll see Juice Pop rather than something that says Untitled Document. So I'm going to hit return after /title and just type in, I know I'm not putting them in here yet, but I'm going to have style tags. So if I type my first style tag, a left caret, the word style, a right caret, and then hit left caret /, it'll close out the style tag for me. I don't have to type in the rest of it. So the majority of the code that I put in here now, again, it's structural, it's CSS, it's going to look like total garbage because I've got no styling on it yet. Doesn't really matter. We can do that in the next tutorial. So after the body tag, I'm going to hit return, and I'm going to put in something different than we've done before. I'm going to set up my page using div IDs and div class. So my tags in the HTML are going to look a little bit different from what we've done so far. So the first div I'm going to put in here is div ID equals, and I can just call it nav, because that's as good. Sometimes I'll call it nav, sometimes I'll call it nav bar. Either one is usually the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. It's a div ID. An ID is something that only appears once on a page. A class is something that I might want to apply as a style to multiple things. So the nav bar is only going to be in one place. It's only going to be at the top, well, when I finish styling it. It's only going to be at the top of the page, so it can be an ID. So I'm going to hit return after that a couple times, type a left caret and a /, and it'll close out the div for me. So everything that I put between these two tags, div ID nav and /div, are going to pertain to the navigation and everything will be neatly contained within those tags. Navigation, as always, when I make a simple nav bar, it's going to be UL, unordered list. Skip down a few lines, type a /, it'll close out the unordered list tag. Next, I got to put in what's going to become the links. Again, I don't have the real links for this yet. This is a work in progress, so it doesn't really matter what I put in here as long as I code it correctly. So these are all list items, LI, and inside each list item, whoops, I just deleted a tag, I will have a href equals quotation marks. It always puts 2 in there. I don't really have the link yet, so I'm just going to close out the link tag and write the word link. You know, that way, hey, I'll know it's a link. Close out that tag by typing /a, and close out the list item itself by typing in another caret and a slash, and it'll close it out with that li tag. So every tag has to have an end tag. We just typed up a list item tag. Rather than retype it over and over again, I'm just going to copy and paste because I know I need to have, what is it, 4 of these? Not 100% sure, but this is a really fast way to do them. So as you can see, well, hey, it's an unordered list, so it's got bullets. Looks crappy now because I've got no styling going on there. But when I start styling, I can change the look and feel of it. So I just completed all the HTML that I will need for my nav bar. So now it's time to work on, what should we put in there next? The div ID for, we can call it logo panel. Okay. I gotta remember all this because afterwards, maybe we'll put that in header container. Okay, so we'll make another div ID. Div ID equals header container. It's only going to be, I don't know, I could probably call it header. Skip down 2 lines, close that. Inside the header container, I'm going to have a special, it's almost like a sidebar, but I'm going to call it something else. I'm just going to call it div ID logo. And that's where, like going back here, okay, what I just did, navigation bar is going to be up here when I do the styling. What I'm writing the code for now is this area that contains the logo and the little thing that says download the app. So I'm putting that within that area. So now I'm going to do div ID equals, that's not an equals, in quotation marks. I'm just going to write logo. I can always change it later. I got to close out every div with a /div. And the other thing that I'm going to put, I can hit return. And the other thing that's going to go in that header container area is going to be the slideshow. So I'm going to make another div ID equals, and I'll just call it slideshow. And again, I have to follow the same rules. Close it out with a /div. So next, I'm going to put in this little /div down there pertains to this one up here that says container. So after that /div, but before /body, I'm going to hit return a couple times and move myself down. Now I want to, there's a reason I call this header container. It's because I'm making another container where all of these things are going to be. I could call it section, I could call it container, either one would be fine. Maybe I'll just call it section. Okay, so div ID equals in quotations. Close out the div with a /div. And the next thing I'm going to put in here is my div ID for way down at the bottom equals footer. Okay, so I got to close that one out. It's got to be before /body. So left caret / and it'll close out the footer div for me. There are things I left out of here, like in the section, I'm probably going to have either thumbnail divs and image divs. Thumbnail doesn't have to be div ID. It can be a div class. So when I style that, I'll code it differently, but in the HTML, it's going to look like a regular div. So I would type it out differently. Like I said, it's going to be in my section area. So I would type div class equals, in quotations, thumb, close it out, and within each thumb area, I could probably actually call it item. Within each thumb area, I'm going to have div class equals, and let's just call it thumb img, short for image. Would it be helpful if I put something in there to space it out, hit return, /div. Okay, so HTML code for my page is